president has already realized great opportunities. He forged the Abraham Accords. He's forging peace as we speak in one country and one region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming from you in particular, this is very meaningful.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the White House yesterday and used the best possible tactic when trying to get something from Donald Trump: flattery and praise. He presented Trump with a letter nominating him for a Nobel Peace Prize for his role in brokering the ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Maybe Bibi remembered that back in February at their previous meeting, and many, many times since then, Trump told reporters that he deserved the prize. Take a look.
Mr. President, you managed to get this deal done. A lot of people say that the men who managed to do that should get a Nobel Peace Prize. Do you think that you'll be able to get all the hostages back home? And what would happen if you hear from the Israeli side?
They will never give me a Nobel Peace Prize.
What would happen if the Israeli...
I deserve it, but they will never give it to me.
I should have gotten it 4 or 5 times. I should get it for the, I would think the Abraham Accords would be a good one too. But what do you They won't give me a Nobel Peace Prize because they only give it to liberals.
Mr. Prime Minister, I was wondering whether you think that Donald Trump, for his effort in Ukraine and otherwise, deserves to be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize.
No, I cannot comment on that.
Mr. President,
But thank you very much for that question. I like that question.
Ironically, as these men patted themselves on the back and claimed worthiness of a Nobel Peace Prize, they also promoted displacement of millions of Palestinians. But before we get to that, Cenk, what do you make of this nomination? Do you think Donald Trump has a chance?
Yeah, I think he does have a chance. And in fact, I'm going to tell you guys a scenario where he would get the Nobel Peace Prize. That's coming up in a little bit. But first, does he deserve it now? Oh no, no. Look, in order to get a Nobel Peace Prize, you have to get the peace. Right now, Israel and the Palestinians are not at all at peace. Israel's still in the middle of their genocide, and we're still in the middle of paying for it. And Donald Trump is still in the middle of kissing Netanyahu's ass and sending him bigger checks. He says, "Oh, I got a ceasefire between Iran and Israel." Well, we could have gotten that if you hadn't bombed them in the first place. So, I mean, the ceasefire between us and Iran existed before Donald Trump started, dropping bunker busters on them. So you can't start a war and then stop it and go, "Now give me the peace prize." That's not how it works. Now there is a scenario in which he gets it, but before I tell you that scenario and we tell you the new horrors that the Israeli government is planning in Gaza, because as Netanyahu was here, as Jordan's going to explain in a second, their defense minister was explaining the camps they're setting up for the Palestinians. It's, as usual, one of the more disgusting things you'll hear. But speaking of disgusting, we're forcing you to do the vote for one of these two characters in our live chat. We've watched the show, obviously, live, 6 to 8 o'clock today. Who deserves the Nobel Prize less, Trump or Netanyahu? I mean, in a sense, we're asking you to vote positively for Trump because it can't be Netanyahu, okay? But okay, that's a super tough choice, sort of make you go through that, okay? But yeah, neither one of them deserve it at all, not even close. Netanyahu is the exact opposite. He deserves the Hague, and Trump, TBD. But first, let's tell you about the horrors that Israel has coming up for the Palestinians next.
Yeah, let's talk about what else they discussed. Back in February, Trump proposed plans for the United States to take ownership of Gaza and to develop it into the Riviera of the Middle East. But he later shied away from that horrific idea. During yesterday's meeting, a reporter in the room asked Trump if his relocation plan for Palestinians was still on the table. Trump redirected the question to Bibi, and here was his response.
I think President Trump had a brilliant vision. It's called free choice. If people want to stay, they can stay. But if they want to leave, they should be able to leave. It shouldn't be a prison. It should be an open place and give people a free choice. We're working with the United States very closely about finding countries that will seek to realize what they always say, that they want to give the Palestinians a better future, and those who, and I think we're getting close to finding several countries, and I think this will give, again, the freedom to choose. Palestinians should have it, and I hope that we can secure it close by.
And we've had great cooperation from surrounding Israel, surrounding countries, great cooperation from every single one of them. So something good will happen.
Neither leader provided any details beyond that. Trump claimed other nations were cooperating, but Jordan and Egypt have previously shot down and outright condemned the proposal as forced displacement, which is illegal under international law. In February, UN spokesman Stephanie Dujarric said that any forced displacement of people is tantamount to ethnic cleansing, and Palestinian leaders were quick to dispute Netanyahu's claim that he wants Gazans to have free choice over whether or not to leave. Mustafa Barghouti, a senior Palestinian politician, says, when they say it would be voluntary, that is so misleading. Because when you bomb people every day, when you starve people for 126 days, who can call that a voluntary decision? Now, aside from Netanyahu, other Israeli officials have different but equally barbaric ideas for what to do with Palestinians. Defense Minister Israel Katz says he's instructed the IDF to develop a plan to establish a new, quote, humanitarian city in the demolished Gaza city of Rafah that Palestinians won't be allowed to leave. The idea of the zone, according to Katz, is to accommodate initially some 600,000 Palestinians who have been living in the Mawasi area on the coast since they were displaced from elsewhere in the Strip after screening them to ensure Hamas operatives are not among them. According to Katz's vision, the entire civilian population of Gaza, more than 2 million people, would eventually be congregated in the zone while the IDF secures it from a distance as international bodies work to manage the area. Don't worry though, because a whopping 4 additional aid distribution sites would be established in the area. Katz also emphasized his ambition to encourage Palestinians to, quote, voluntarily emigrate from the Gaza Strip to other countries, saying this plan, quote, should be fulfilled. Cenk, are you encouraged at all by this plan?
No, it's a monstrous, horrific, genocidal plan. Netanyahu, you heard him say, Gaza's not a prison. It's an open place. They should have free choice. And then as he's saying that, on the same day, his defense minister is saying, no, we're going to take all of the Palestinians, 2.2 million of them, stuff them into a tiny area. I'm going to give you a sense of how tiny it is in a second. And they're never allowed to leave. I mean, they'll be allowed to leave if they're going to get expelled to a different country. IDF already occupies 70% of Gaza. They plan to occupy more of it, and that's going to be Israel's. And so, look, I'm going to get into the pattern of how they do this in a second. But to give you a sense of the context of how small Gaza is the size of Vegas. It is 1/3 of the size of Hiroshima. By the way, Israel has dropped enough bombs on that tiny little area already. It's the equivalent of 8 atomic bombs in a place that is the size of 1/3 of Hiroshima. I mean, they have already obliterated it. What part of this is free to go, open, not a prison? So is this forced displacement, as the Palestinians say? Well, of course it is. It's not. None of this is voluntary. No, and by the way, this happens in almost every genocide. The empire will pick, the rebels that are rebelling against them, call them terrorists, and say they're hiding in the civilian population. That's why we had to murder the civilians. What the Nazis said about the French resistance. The French resistance was hiding in the population. You know why? Because they had no military barracks. They had lost. They were in hiding from the Nazis who were trying to hunt them down. And the Germans said, well, they're in the civilian population, so we can kill as many as we like. And by the way, the Turks did the same thing with the Armenians. Oh, they're hitting us from behind their civilians. And they're hitting us right next to the Russian border. We have to move them, we have to displace them. And they're free to leave. They should leave the Ottoman Empire. They should leave entirely, okay? And if they don't leave, we're gonna make them leave, and then we're gonna kill them along the way. It's exactly what Israel's doing. Exactly what Israel's doing. There's nothing voluntary about it at all. They didn't voluntarily get slaughtered. They didn't hide behind human shields. No, Israel chose to kill their civilians. Over 30,000 dead women and children at a bare minimum. 56,000 dead overall at a bare minimum, let alone the people buried in the rubble that they haven't actually put names to yet, but there are tens of thousands under the rubble as well. So look, so now that's Gaza, that tiny area that I described. Defense Minister Katz is talking about a microscopic area within Gaza. How is he gonna stuff 2 million people into that area? I mean, at a minimum, that's a prison, the exact opposite of what Netanyahu said. And Netanyahu is a legendary liar. I don't know that I've ever met anyone in public life, seen anyone in public life that is a bigger liar than Benjamin Netanyahu. Almost every time he speaks, he doesn't just lie a little, he says the exact opposite of what's true. And so, but you'd be lucky if we call it a prison, because what it really looks like is a concentration camp. And that's very literal. It'll be a camp where they concentrate 2 million Palestinians into a tiny little area, and the IDF will be controlling it from a distance, meaning if you try to leave, they'll murder you. It's a concentration camp they're setting up in Gaza. So if that hurts your feelings, you're nuts. You're nuts, you're nuts. What happened to the Jews in the Holocaust was awful, disastrous, horrific. You shouldn't then go, because of that, we get to set up a camp and you're not allowed to call it anything. I'm gonna use my religion as a weapon against you. You're not allowed to criticize my beloved Israel at all. No. Don't you see that you're setting up the same thing the Germans set up? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You think it's okay to murder 17,000 children because you think maybe 1 or 10 or 100 Hamas guys were hiding behind them, and that's why Israel had to murder them? And they say, oh, well, the Palestinians will walk onto a bus and do a bomb from however many years ago. You know, if you drop a bomb from a plane, it's the same thing. It's actually worse because it's a 2,000-pound bomb and it kills every civilian underneath it, including all the kids. So the Israeli defense for why they're not terrorists is, yes, we kill way more civilians than Hamas does. We killed 500 times the number of children that Hamas did. But since we drop our bombs from planes, we are not terrorists. We are a very sophisticated Western country, okay? And we're protecting civilization from the monster, terrible Palestinians who have all that land that I want. That's why I gotta stuff them into a camp. No, Israel's position, 1,000% indefensible. If you're still trying to defend it, you're looking like a monster. So, okay, you could choose to look like a monster, that's up to you. But I'm against all genocides. I'm against all Holocausts. I'm against killing all civilians, Israeli, Palestinian, or otherwise. If you don't think Palestinian lives matter, you're a terrible, terrible, terrible person. So I just want to be super clear about that. So look, all of this has nothing to do with peace. One last thing for now, Jordan. The important part, one of the most important parts here is Israel's never going to be satisfied. So there is no ceasefire. You know what they're offering Hamas right now? They're saying, okay, give us all the hostages back, and in return, we'll give you a 60-day ceasefire. And Hamas is saying, but that's useless. After 60 days, you're just gonna go back to murdering us all. And Netanyahu is saying, yeah, and we're gonna set up a concentration camp and stuff you in there, and we're gonna try to ship you out, and we're gonna take all of Gaza. So, I mean, I hope Hamas is weak enough to say yes to that ceasefire, but they would have to be impotent, total weaklings to say, yes, we get nothing in return, nothing. Okay, yeah, Israel can occupy Gaza forever. We get 60 days of a ceasefire, which we all know Israel will break on the 3rd day. It's all nonsense. So we give them the hostages back and they get to keep Gaza? Where the hell's the deal? Well, how's that a peace deal? And so all of this is backed up by the monstrous American politicians, Trump and Biden. Yes, Trump is worse so far. and American media who are like, oh yeah, Netanyahu says he's giving freedom to the Palestinians, and the Palestinians can go wherever they like. Oh, how benevolent of the beautiful Israel and their most moral army. I mean, the propaganda is sickening, and isn't it embarrassing? If you work in mainstream media, aren't you? How do you look at yourself in the mirror? How are you not incredibly embarrassed at the nonsense propaganda you do for a genocidal government? And then anyone who criticizes them, you're like, you're a bad person. Defending a genocide is what a good moral person would do. Trying to stop a genocide, anti-Semite, anti-Semite, anti-Semite. You're all immoral for trying to stop a genocide. No, we're not. The American media and American politicians, and especially Donald Trump at this moment, are deeply, deeply, deeply immoral. Yes, I have a way out, but no, they'll never do it.
Yeah, I think the point in that plan that's key is the IDF will secure it from a distance. How is that dissimilar from what Gaza was like pre-October 7th? Other than it's significantly smaller and you have a higher concentration of people living in an even smaller area. What we have seen since, and of course they're talking about, oh, we're gonna filter through the crowd, we're gonna go through everybody and inspect everybody to make sure there's no Hamas operatives that get in there. We have seen time and time again, the IDF is not responsible. It is not diligent. It is not ethical in how they respond to or analyze the potential involvement of somebody living in Gaza as it relates to potential Hamas involvement. And we have heard accounts from people living in Gaza, from Palestinians, even from IDF soldiers. They have used this kind of hollow, flimsy justification. Oh, well, yeah, they could be Hamas operatives. They could be a Hamas fighter. And they have killed civilian after civilian after civilian, deep down knowing that these people had nothing to do with Hamas. So I don't have a lot of faith in the IDF's ability to responsibly go through this crowd of 600,000 people and say, yeah, you're fine, go. Because as we saw with the US's war in the Middle East, any military age male, and in this case, and in our case in the Middle East, but also in the IDF's case here, oftentimes younger men are unjustly and unfairly grouped in with Hamas. So I think we will see potentially a massacre if this plan is implemented and people start getting ushered into this very small part of Gaza. This isn't a path to future, and as you laid out, Cenk, it doesn't answer lingering questions, urgent questions about what happens to that land overall, because this seems like a setup where to the international community and to its partners and allies, they can say, oh look, we're hands up, we're just protecting them from a distance, we're just enforcing it from a distance. But all of the land that they will very likely seize if this plan is implemented will just now suddenly be Israel's, which is what they want, like you're saying. They want that beachfront property. They want to develop it. People like Trump and his allies certainly want to get their hands on it so they can build coastal real estate, apartment complexes, condos, whatever. And that is, it's an even further annexation of land that isn't theirs. So I would hope that this plan isn't implemented. You know, the reporting in the Times of Israel said that this isn't Netanyahu's plan. Of course, this is his defense minister, but he's beholden to those people to even remain in power. So they have leverage over Netanyahu, so he can try to distance himself from this plan specifically, but he doesn't really have a lot of room to push back because he needs them to stay in power.
Yeah, no, I go way further than you. I mean, this is definitely Netanyahu's plan. They're just totally lying. They're saying, oh, look at my defense minister. He wants to set up a concentration camp. Whereas I am for openness. No, they have the same exact plan. Murder enough Palestinians that they run, and when they do, you grab their land. And let's be honest, can we be honest for a second? Because American media won't let you be honest. This is what Israel has been doing since 1948. In 1948, they came in, and you think that like there's this mythology in America that everybody went for a picnic and the Palestinians decided not to return. No, they murdered Palestinians in their homes, and they drove them from their homes, and that's why it's called the Nakba. You think they voluntarily left their homes of hundreds of years or thousands of years? No, 750,000 Palestinians were driven through a terror campaign that Israel started in 1948 to take that land. And now what are they doing in Gaza? A terror campaign where they kill Palestinians, so Palestinians are driven from the land, and then they'll take Gaza. And it's not my speculation. That is what their government is saying that they're going to do. We're going to keep murdering Palestinians. We're going to put them in a tiny little concentration camp, and we're going to push them out to other Arab countries, and we're going to take Gaza. They already have 70% of Gaza. It's not, there was all, in the beginning, it was like American media was like, oh, that's anti-Semitic conspiracy theory to say that Israel, the beloved Israel, would take Gaza. Now they're saying, yeah, they literally voted saying, we conquered Gaza and we're just going to take it. That's what they did in 1948. That's what they're doing now. That's what they did in 1967. You know, with this whole idea of preemptive war, where does it come from? Israel preemptively attacking all of its Arab neighbors in 1967 and going, oh, I think they were going to attack me. Hey, look at that, I attacked them first and destroyed all of their militaries before they could even get up off the ground. And then I took more land from them, including the occupied territories and the Sinai, more land, more land, more land. And every time Israel does the same exact thing that every greedy empire has ever done. Oh, I did it for self-defense. I had to do it for self-defense. That's why I attacked them first and took their land and murdered their people and stuffed them into camps. I had to do it for self-defense. No, it's for land. It's for land. It's super obvious. Okay, by the way, the Israeli citizens, they're a lost cause. I mean, I don't want them to be a lost cause. I want them to turn around, but they've lost their moral cord. Let's be honest about it. We can't say it because it sounds bad, but it's not us that are saying it, it's them that are saying it. They asked in a poll in Israel of Israeli Jews, how many of you think that the Palestinians should be expelled from Gaza? 82% said yes, expel them, ethnically cleanse them. When they made it more specific, forced expulsion, we are going to just shove them into another land and just take their goddamn land. We're just gonna take it. What do you guys think? 56% of Israeli Jews said, yes, yes, kill them and take their land, forced expulsion. Okay, so look, nevertheless, I'm like, don't do any harm to the civilians of either side. But don't tell me that the Palestinians are somehow the aggressors. 47% of Israeli Jews in that same poll said, quote, when conquering an enemy city should act in a, this was a question, should they act in a manner similar to the way that the Israelites acted when they conquered Jericho under the leadership of Joshua, namely to kill all of its inhabitants? And 47% of Israeli Jews said yes, kill everyone in Gaza. That's not a genocide, that's a Holocaust. Nearly half of Israeli Jews voted to do a Holocaust on Gaza. I don't want any discussion about the morality of Israel. That's not even close, that's not on the table. Only war crimes are on the table. I hope to God Israel turns around, and I believe that any country can turn around. And I think that they're in a psychosis, just a blind rage and PTSD from all the pogroms and the Holocaust that they suffered. But they have to snap out of it because these things are just monstrous. They're beyond monstrous. Last thing. So how in the world, out of all of this, do I get to Trump getting a peace prize? There's one way, but it's near impossible. So forget Russia and Ukraine. If you get some peace, amazing. Pakistan, India, wonderful. Okay, good, good, good. But those are no. Look, what would be historic and worthy of a Nobel Peace Prize is if he got peace between Iran, Israel, and the Palestinians and got a two-state solution. Iran stops developing nukes. The Palestinians get a state, Israel gets a safe Jewish haven. Everybody wins. The 53 Arab countries already have a plan for it. They're happy, the world is happy, we're happy. Then by all means, Donald Trump earned a Nobel Peace Prize. But that's a giant if with a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage chance of happening. Why? Because every time Netanyahu comes to town, he slaps Trump around and goes, we're not gonna do peace. We're gonna offer him a total BS ceasefire. We're gonna lie to them. We're gonna get the hostages back and then we'll go back to bombing them and stuffing them into camps and pushing them out of the country. We're gonna steal their land, Donald. Wake up. help me steal their land. And Donald goes, oh, okay. Who did I get bribed by today? Oh, okay. Yeah, there are no Epstein files. Oh, yeah, totally. And yeah, of course, the Palestinians, I'm going to give them freedom from their lives by paying for you murdering them and stuffing them into camps. So no, Trump's not going to do any of this. You think he's strong enough to stand up to Netanyahu? Well, I hope to God that he proves me wrong and that he is. But right now, he's taking the usual role of an American president, which is the butler of the Israeli prime minister. So those are facts. You can catch all sorts of feelings about him. But if you don't catch as much feelings about 17,000 dead kids as people's words about your beloved Israel, there's something morally off with you. So look in the mirror and how about we all fight to save all civilian lives, even if they're Palestinian or Muslim. I know, an outrageous thought that those lives would have value. But yes, I believe that. And if you don't, again, go to a therapist and deal with yourself. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.